Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, ValdaValsha, where in this video I am going to show you 10 different items that I wish I knew about before I started making cosplay. Now, some of these may seem a little obvious, but I started cosplaying when I was like 17, so I was not that smart. And if I would have known about these items, it would have made my cosplay life a hell of a lot easier. So let's get started with the video. Dress form. So this one may be a little obvious, but when I first started cosplaying, I didn't have much money. There are tutorials out there where you can learn how to make a duct tape dress form as well, but honestly, I think it's just easier to go out and buy one. I would basically cut out my patterns and attempt to fit the fabric to my body, resulting in me becoming a human pincushion, which is not fun. The dress form I have here is adjustable, which is something I need because I have some big ol' hips. You can also find non-adjustable dress forms if that is your preference. There are also dress forms with attachable arms as well as full body dress forms. And of course, you can find dress forms made for men. Sewing clips and pattern weights. These are different methods to use to either hold together your fabric or hold down your fabric. Of course, you can use sewing pins or even safety pins for connecting your fabric, but sewing clips are another great way to hold that fabric together, and they're so colorful and pretty. Pattern weights go along with this. For too long, I would just grab random books to assist me, but pattern weights are nice and tiny, they're easy to carry, and they keep the fabric nicely in place. And of course, they hold down those patterns pretty well too. Snap tape and hook and eye tape. Here we have some regular snaps which range from teeny tiny to big. You can get some pretty big snaps for your projects. And here are your average hook and eyes. But you should know that you can buy them in tape form as well. These will keep things perfectly even rather than trying to match up the notions yourself. Here is an example of the snap tape. And here is an example of the hook and eye tape. A perfect example for the hook and eye tape is the bridal corset that I have here. You can see that there are two different rows for the hooks to connect to, depending on how the person wants it to be sized. Water-soluble pens. You can use pens to mark your fabric, you can use pencil, and you can even use fabric chalk. But my favorite that I wish I knew about before is water-soluble pens. These are great tools for marking your fabric, and the best part is it washes out with water. Now you should always make sure that you test a piece of fabric before you go wild with these. Here's what the fabric looks like after running it under water. And here's the final result after washing out all of the ink. Bias tape maker set. Need lots of bias tape from a specific fabric or just want to make your own instead of using store-bought? Get a bias tape maker kit. It is a fantastic tool that makes the process so much easier. Here I am showing off the 4 different sizes that mine came with. It will create a single fold bias tape, and of course you can turn that into a double fold as well. That's more so for the larger bias tape makers here. So for example, if you use a strip of a 2-inch bias and use the 25mm tool or the 1-inch tool, it will create a 1-inch single fold bias tape. And then when you fold it again, leaving one side ever so slightly bigger, it will be a 1/2-inch double fold bias tape. When it comes to understanding how to find the bias, it can be a little tricky to get used to, but it's so important because this is the part of the fabric that will give the most stretch. Here you can see my homemade bias tape and the stretch it gives. Below is some store-bought bias tape. I will link my personal favorite tutorial in the description below that will show how to find the bias and how to create a double fold bias tape. Different needles and different machine feet. Your machine will take different needles for different types of fabrics. The most used is the universal needle, and this will work with most of your fabrics. There are also the heavy-duty needles for materials like leather and denim. And here I have some twin needles for some fancy trimmings. And if you don't switch your needles out to the appropriate needles, they could break off and, possibly hit you in the head. Or jam your machine. Whichever one comes first. While I'm on the subject of needles, there are also different hand sewing needles as well, such as curved needles for hard to reach places, and there are also leather needles for thicker materials. Your machine comes with a default presser foot like the one shown here. There are so many different machine feet for different uses. Here is the pin tuck foot, which is used with the twin needles. This is the zipper foot, the invisible zipper foot, and this is the bias tape binding foot, which is adjustable. The machine foot that made my sewing life so much easier is the invisible zipper foot. You can of course get away with using a normal zipper foot, but the invisible zipper foot is truly meant to make your invisible zipper invisible, just like it says in the name. Here I'm using a light blue invisible zipper, and you can't even see it in the skirt because just like it says in the name, it truly does make it invisible, and it makes it so much easier when you use the correct foot that is meant for this zipper. Fabric scissors. Yes, there are different scissors made just for fabric, and you never use them for anything but fabric. Using your fabric scissors for non-fabric materials will dull the scissors and eventually ruin them. Here I am using some scissors that are used for everyday things and are not meant for cutting fabric, and they do give a bit of resistance while I am cutting this material. And now I am using my sewing scissors here, which have never touched anything but fabric, and they cut through this material quite smoothly without any resistance. Fabric scissors can be quite pricey, so make sure that you keep them away from somebody who will not adhere to the fabric scissor rule. Patterns. Patterns are a great asset for sewing and an amazing personal teacher. I'll talk about that in another video. And hey, if you want to know about how to buy patterns at their lowest price, check out my video about buying patterns like a pro. Patterns are a great base for just about any sewing project. You can alter them to your shape and size, and it will give you an idea of how much fabric is needed, how to lay out your pattern pieces onto the fabric, and different sewing techniques needed for different parts of the garment. Patterns also show great tricks like notches and different marks to match up your fabric pieces perfectly. Here's an example of a pattern piece where you can see I have cut out the notches on the pattern, and then I will replicate that onto the fabric as well. Serger. Being introduced to a serger was game-changing for me. Have delicate fabric that frays the moment you touch it? Serge it. Are you making stretch leggings? Serge it. Using a material that's pretty sturdy and doesn't fall apart? You know what? Serge it anyway. It's pretty. This is a bit of an investment, but at least for my American viewers, I would suggest waiting for deals like Black Friday at places like Amazon or Joann Fabrics. I personally got mine during Black Friday on Amazon. There are times when serging isn't 100% necessary, but having it on hand makes that sewing life oh so much easier. Are you a little intimidated by the serger and its 4 big scary cones? I have an easy thread serger hack tutorial to avoid that stress. You can do a faux serger stitch with a normal sewing machine, basically with a zigzag stitch by the way, but I prefer the serger because it will cut off the excess fabric while it serges. The Complete Book of Sewing by DK Publishing. This is my ultimate recommendation. This book is a lifesaver. It will introduce you to different tips and tricks and so much more. You can find it at used bookstores or even online. I have the older edition here, but they've made a newer one since then. Want to understand different fabrics? It has a whole chapter about that. Having trouble understanding the selvage and bias? Or do you need help inserting an invisible zipper into a pleated skirt? It has all of that covered too. From the basic stitches to the professional techniques, it truly is the complete book of sewing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I realized while making this video that there's quite a couple of different tips that I really wish I knew before I started making my own cosplay as well, so I'm going to make a separate video regarding that. In the meantime, please leave me a comment down below about which items you wish you knew about before you started making cosplays. You can also share this video with your friends who may find it useful, and also please leave me a like please subscribe and please hit that bell notification so that you never miss another video from me. And also, if you want to check out my Instagram, I'll leave it in the description below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye! Want to understand different fabrics? It has a whole chapter about...
What the f-